Welcome everybody to HomeKit Insider. You've got me, Andrew O'Hara, here with my pal and the secret lead singer of the Bee Gees, Stephen Robles. How you doing, man?
I'm good. If I knew a Bee Gees song, I would have broken the song right then.
Yeah, well,
What
it's probably for the best.
what's a recognizable one? What I don't even know. Let's see. How do you even spell Bee Gees? Bee Gees songs. Do you have any idea? You just said you random
I'm
artist.
just waiting to see what you come out with here.
Well, apparently Google's not working. Bee Gees. Well, I was going to sing to the listeners and you, of course, but I don't even know what to sing. Ah ah staying alive, staying alive.
I have to say, I feel like you should be able to come up with something. And
Apparently. Yeah, Google says staying alive. So I knew that one. You're welcome. You're welcome, listeners. You're welcome, Andrew. Listen, Andrew, there was so much stuff last week. Obviously, there was a massive Apple event. And, actually, maybe before we even jump into some HomeKit stuff, I'm just curious. We are recording before pre-orders go live, but listeners will hear this after pre-orders are done. So, Andrew, what will you have had ordered? I think that's the right tense. On pre-order Friday.
oh, Stephen, I still don't know. Okay, I don't
Still
know.
don't know.
And
Okay.
it's a little bit of a panic for me because my hours are counting down until I have to make a decision.
Right.
And I don't know. So historically, I've gone with the max size or the plus sized phones, right? And historically, there is a tangible difference on those bigger phones, whether it's like, the inclusion of like the first portrait mode, like with the 7, or we've got like the better cameras like we had with the 12. With 13, there's diddly difference. So the only real benefit of going with the 13 Pro Max is going to be the screen size and the battery life. And I'm sitting here debating like, I've had the Max or the Plus for years, and sometimes I think it's like too big. Like sometimes I'm like, it's just too big, a little annoying. It's a little hard to reach across the screen sometimes.
Correct.
And I'm like, man, I kind of wish I had a smaller phone sometimes. Other times I love the bigger display. So I'm sitting here just debating, do I go with the regular 13 Pro this year, or do I stick with the Pro Max? And I don't know, and no one will help me decide.
Well, Andrew, I will help you right now because I think you should go with a regular 13 Pro. I have done the max sizes and the plus sizes. Last year was the first time where the plus or the max size had a marked difference in camera quality, but I chose not to do it because with that flat edge design and the weight and thickness of the iPhone 12 Pros, I was like, I do not want to carry this massive hunk of metal around. And now the iPhone 13 Pro and 13 are actually even a little bit heavier and thicker than the 12 Pro. So I would recommend now's the time. Try the 13 Pro regular size, not the max size. See if you like it. And this way, in future years, you'll know, like, actually, I do prefer the smaller size or not. And like you said, I'm glad because this year is like some years where the Pro and Pro Max are literally the exact same phone except for the screen size and battery size. And then that makes the choice, at least you have a choice, if you want to get the best iPhone. I will say it's interesting this year that the 13 and 13 Pro actually have very different camera systems. Last year, if you got a 12 or 12 Pro, the telephoto lens was only on the Pro, but the main cameras, the wide and ultra wide, were actually the same cameras. So it wasn't as much of a camera, downgrade if you went down to the 12 from the 12 Pro. But this year, there's a difference between the 13 and 13 Pro for the cameras especially. So just my recommendation, Andrew. I think you should try the 13 Pro regular. That's what I'm going to be pre-ordering in the Sierra Blue.
I'm still just torn. The battery life is such a hit. I mean,
yeah, but there's bigger batteries in the 13s, so you might get similar battery to what you have now.
I know. Which
And
is
you got MagSafe everywhere. You just slap that phone on different MagSafe stuff. No problem. You got it.
Slap that phone on different MagSafe stuff.
Just slap it on. Did you like the iPad mini enough to want to get one yourself?
We ordered one here for the studio, but I did really, really like it. I don't know if I'll end up like buying one for like personal use, but I'm gonna be trying one out. Trying AppleInsiders for a little while,
Yeah.
and seeing if it makes sense. I mean, I'm a huge fan of like the 12.9 iPad Pro, so like I have a giant iPad, and it's like, but I have
Right.
been like in spots before, like in the car, on a plane, where it's like a little obnoxious to have like the larger iPad.
Yes.
Like I feel like
Exactly.
awkward like watching a movie, on a plane with like the
Yeah.
biggest iPad possible. So like I usually turn to my phone screen, which is then when it helps to have that larger phone screen.
But if you got that iPad Mini, it doesn't matter. And I mean, it's anyway. I'll let you know. I'm gonna get the 13 Pro either way, and it's gonna be great. So, listeners, let us know which one did you pre-order on pre-order day if you got one of those new 13s. So, very curious. Well, there was one HomeKit hardware kind of news this week, and so I want to cover that TD Lock, which I have not heard of this brand. It's TEDEE. They actually announced that their smart lock has just gained HomeKit support, and it can be updated over the air. So I guess current TD locks, if you have one of these, then this firmware might be available for you now, and you can get HomeKit support in the lock. These are not available in the U.S. I tried on their website, try as I might to order one, but it's just not available in the U.S., but it's available in the U.K. and in some European countries. It's a little pricey. It looked like, again, it was a euro symbol, so no promises if I know the conversion here, but it looked like it was upwards of $300 for one of these locks, and they have different kits and packages, but it's great to have another HomeKit smart lock option out there. So did you know anything about this TD company?
No, I mean, especially without the HomeKit support being in there.
Right.
No.
Yeah. Well, welcome TD to the HomeKit fam. Nice to have you, the HomeKiteers.
Duh.
Okay. All right. Well, I also wanted to mention Apple announced that as you listen to this episode on Monday, September 20, that iOS 15, iPadOS 15, all the software updates for the Apple products will be coming out today, most likely around 10 or most likely around noon or 1 p.m. They usually come out. But in the HomeKit side, tvOS and HomePod OS 15 is also coming out. So I wanted to run down some of those features that are going to be coming to tvOS and HomePod OS with this 15 update, because there were some pretty cool features coming if you remember. So on the tvOS 15, the For All of You and Shared With You sections in the TV app will appear. And so if someone has texted you a link to a show or a movie, then those recommendations will show up on your Apple TV in this new For You page. And the For All of You section, which tries to intelligently predict what everyone in the family would watch. In my family of, 5, me, my wife, and 3 kids, I'm very curious what they recommend for the For All of You in section. So we'll see what they actually come up with there. And spatial audio means you can now listen with AirPods Pro or AirPods Max connected directly to an Apple TV, which is great. That was a feature where we were like, what's the deal? Why can't we listen spatial audio? So that's coming with tvOS 15. And also there'll be a smart AirPods notification. So if you take your AirPods out or put them in your ears, you should see a notification on the Apple TV saying, hey, do you want to listen with your AirPods? We noticed you just took them out. So that's really cool. HomeKit camera enhancements, meaning you'll be able to view multiple HomeKit cameras around the house at the same time. There's been some third-party apps that allow you to do this, but now there's a first-party ability to view all the cameras. And you can now pair 2 HomePod mini speakers with your Apple TV 4K, which you were able to do previously with the now defunct and discontinued large HomePod. If you wanted to use a large HomePod for your speakers, well, now you can use a pair of HomePod minis for your TV speakers as well. So you've probably been living with these betas for a while, Andrew. Were any of these features really, stand out for you that you found particularly useful?
We talked about it before. I really like the HomePod mini syncing. You can not just set it for like a pair of speakers, but you can just do one HomePod mini and it stays the default output. So everything comes through your HomePod. Like before, if you set it as like an AirPlay source, you'd still have like your beeps and clicks and like menu interface and everything coming through like your regular speakers, whatever they were, or not at all if you didn't have any speakers connected. And then you'd have like your TV audio coming through your HomePod. with this being able to set as the default, it will have like all system noises, everything come through the HomePod Mini, and it'll stay connected. So before, after like a while or a restart or something like that, the HomePod Mini would like get bumped off because it's just an AirPlay speaker. But with this, you can actually set it as the default. So it'll always stay connected until you tell it otherwise. So that's been like my biggest thing is I can use that now in our bedroom because the other speaker, like it's coming from a projector. So the projector speakers are garbage. So this is a lot nicer to have like a good speaker, and you can actually control the volume. I couldn't control the volume with the Siri remote on the projector, but I can control it on the HomePod.
Nice. You know, and I will say, when the HomePod Mini came out, we talked a lot about sound quality compared to the larger HomePod, and obviously it doesn't sound as good as that large HomePod did, but I was recently listening to some music on a pair of HomePod Minis, and
Bee Gees?
It was not the Bee Gees.
Oh, okay.
I was listening to, I forget his name, but it was a classical pianist. And I will just say, they do sound pretty good. Like a pair of stereo HomePod Minis, they do have a good sound. You know, you're not going to get the volume or the bass as the larger ones, but they're pretty good. And they're probably better than most TV speakers. If you have an Apple TV connected to a big TV, you know what I mean, and you don't have a surround sound system or other speakers, you're just using the built-in TV speakers, I think a pair of HomePod Minis would sound better, most likely. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it depends on the TVs. I have not tried too many like the cheaper TVs. Like we have the Samsung ones and Sony ones, and they're already building things like Dolby Atmos into the TVs themselves. Of course, you have like a big difference in like how that actually like performs. But they're putting in some pretty darn good speakers on the high-end units, which is surprising to me because if you're spending that much on a TV, you're probably not using your TV speakers.
Right.
You know what I mean? But yeah, they've put some decent ones in there now. But on the low end, I'm sure the HomePod Mini would sound better.
Right. I feel like the Dolby Atmos tag is now just getting like thrown around as almost like Netflix was back in the day, where you can get Netflix on like your microwave, you can get Netflix on a toaster oven. Now it feels like you can get Dolby Atmos on like almost anything. My son was actually looking at a pair of wireless headphones, and so he actually saved up himself and bought a pair of Beats Flex, I think it is. They're the $50 Beats headphones. No noise canceling or anything. They're just in-ear headphones. They're connected with a wire. But Apple's website says that they have Dolby Atmos for Apple Music. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm not sure. I guess Dolby Atmos can be whatever. So, I don't know. Anyway, I want to also touch on HomePod OS 15, which will be coming out Monday as well as you listen to this. The media playback controls, if you're playing music from a HomePod Mini, maybe you just started it with Siri or someone else started playing on a HomePod Mini, you'll be able to control that HomePod Mini automatically if your iPhone becomes near the HomePod Mini. So rather than having to go to like the AirPlay menu and find the HomePod Mini in that list and then control it, these controls should appear automatically. You can lower the base level on HomePods to not disturb people around you. If you live in an apartment and you want to listen at a good volume but not disturb neighbors, you can turn down the bass. Now, I thought this was interesting. You can ask Siri to turn on your Apple TV, start playing a favorite movie, and control playback while you watch. Now, we had talked a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago, about shortcuts that you can build that control your Apple TV, like going back 15 seconds, turning on captions, and then turning off after a certain number of seconds. So do you know exactly what this means where now Siri can turn on your Apple TV? I mean, I thought it did that before.
I think it's just more controls. Like, I don't know if it actually, it's hard to remember what it did prior to an update. Like, what I lived with before.
You might have had to create a shortcut to turn on the Apple TV, because like I have a shortcut that the only step is basically turn on the Apple TV, open the remote app on my phone. So it might have been only a shortcut before. Mm-hmm. Now it's built in.
Yeah, I could see that.
Maybe. So anyway, if you didn't have shortcuts for it before, that's cool. It's now available. Siri will adjust its speaking level based on room environment and volume of the user. This is really cool. If you've ever used an Alexa, the name we don't speak of on this podcast, if you like whisper to an Alexa, it will whisper back and try to match your volume. I mean, it at least has those two settings, like normal talking and whispering. And so this means that Siri should match the volume. So if you talk really softly to Siri, it should answer you softly. Or I guess if it's a very quiet room, but you had Siri blasting for some reason before, it will adjust before it speaks, which that's a welcome thing. Sometimes my kids set a timer and Siri's like, timer is set for 15 minutes. And it's like, bro, relax. So I'm curious to see how well that works. I'm looking forward to that. And you can control smart home devices through HomePod that are like give it delayed commands. So you could say, turn off the lights in 10 minutes. And then the HomePod will keep track and then turn it off in 10 minutes. Which is really cool. Before you would have had to set up like a shortcut of wait time and stuff like that. So be curious to try that out. I've not run the betas myself, so that'll be cool. And also this brings Siri voice control to other HomeKit accessories. This was in the announcement back at WWDC. So like the Ecobee thermostat is going to have Siri built in, and this HomePod OS 15 now allows that integration where the Ecobee thermostat can have Siri integration and package detection with HomeKit Secure Video. I'm curious, I guess the HomePod will announce, hey, you have a package. Has it ever done that to you?
No, but I think it's just the kind of the video processing that they're doing. If your HomePod's your home hub, then it's supporting your HomeKit Secure Video cameras. So that's just a new feature coming to HomeKit Secure Video when you require a HomePod or Apple TV to do.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's tvOS and HomePod OS 15 comes out as you listen to this Monday, September 20th. So very cool. You can download that for a free update. Now, you added in here as I was talking, new Sonos Beam. What you got there?
Yeah, I completely forgot about this. And as we're talking about TVs and soundbars and speakers, I forgot that this was announced this week. Sonos introed the Beam 2nd generation. So this does support AirPlay 2. So it does fit into the HomeKit ecosystem. But there are a number of other improvements as well. So the original one had like a fabric grill around it. It's been replaced with like a micro perforated plastic that should be a lot more durable, because mine got snagged a couple times and it drove me crazy staring at it. Little snags in there. But it's not just about changing fabric to plastic. There's a bunch of other new features on the Beam. We have eARC is here. It does support Dolby Atmos, just like its big brother, the Sonos Arc. So we have Dolby Atmos here. eARC is what helps kind of facilitate that. There's still touch controls on the top. Overall, just been retuned, new speakers on the inside, so just better sounding quality audio in the new like entry-level Sonos soundbar.
Very nice. So it looks like it starts at $450 for the Gen 2 white and black. Interesting. Now, have we heard anything from Sonos about whether they'll include Siri on their products?
Not that I've heard.
I would be curious. I would maybe consider Sonos more if I could actually have Siri. It says, Alexa and Google Assistant built in.
I don't know. My house is too small, apparently, because with a HomePod Mini in several rooms, like I can stand, I'm pretty sure, anywhere in the house and just say those magical words and Siri's going to respond. Okay. I don't need to in my living room, I already have HomePods. Why would I need to put Siri also on my soundbar?
Sure. And you can control like your home theater in your living room. Like, does the Sonos soundbar just is smart enough to know when you've turned on the Apple TV and everything, and it just plays the input? You never really have to control it or anything?
Yep.
And how do you control volume? Like the Apple TV remote?
Yep.
Is it?
It uses, what is that called?
The eARC? No.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's using like eARC to send like the audio and everything, but it's not the audio return channel. Yeah, CEC. It's using that for control. So it's automatically woken up. When your Apple TV wakes up, it'll send that CEC command, which turns on your TV, and then your TV then in turn will send the CEC command to your soundbar setting saying, hey, we're awake, and then your TV just routes through the Beam as its external audio source.
And volume, like you click the Apple TV remote volume and it adjusts the Beam.
Yep. Yeah, automatically through CEC, just passes it through to the Beam and adjusts the volume. I have a Beam here in the studio, and then we have an ARC in our living room.
And you can add other Sonos speakers to make like actual surround sound with this system, right?
Yep, you can add rears and a subwoofer,
It's interesting. I'm still on the fence.
including the
Yeah.
new like the Sonos wall ones that we talked about, like the picture frame
Right.
speakers. And did you see this? That new. I don't know if we ever talked about it on the show, but I feel like it was like 2 weeks ago. Maybe we were just too busy last week with an interview with Michael. But we had it looked like a new second gen Sonos lamp, IKEA lamp
What?
was leaked.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
I
assume
can't
you're
see
you're
that.
doing a quick Google over there. But yeah, and it looks like it has interchangeable shades. So it has a similar body, but then you can swap out the shade to match
Ah,
the room that you're in.
that is interesting. Yeah, it's the Symfonisk IKEA lamp with Wi-Fi speaker. IKEA calls it, and so it's kind of like a. It almost looks like a HomePod with a shorter HomePod on top of it. It looks like a
Well, that's the
snowman of
original one,
HomePods.
right?
Oh, is that the original one? Okay, well, that's just what came up when I Googled it. Let's
Well,
see.
yeah, because there's the original one that was out. I have one of those here, but there's a new second gen one that's coming with like swappable shades. Because the first one's like a glass dome that sits on top of a home pod, and I don't think everyone liked the look of that. It looked kind of like quirky, modern,
It
and
does, yeah.
now you'll be able to swap it out with other ones that'll maybe make more sense to your home.
Okay, so yeah, this new one leaked, and at least there's a picture here from Le Verge. But so I'll put that as a chapter. Right? Yeah, that it looks better for sure. I still don't know if I like the look of that, but I'll have to see the different the shade options. That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure
That's
there's gonna
so
be
yeah.
third-party shade options as well. Like with the
Mm,
frame from IKEA and Sonos, there are already third parties working on, custom art and panels and wood panel, like all sorts of stuff you can swap the front for. Uh,
okay.
and I'm sure we're gonna see a third-party market for the new Sonos lamp as well.
That's super interesting. Yeah, I'm on the fence just thinking about my new house if it's going to be if I do want to do all the wired stuff and have like a receiver I need to deal with, or do I want to do like a Sonos Beam for just the home theater and go all wireless and make it easy? Don't know. Well, anyway. All right, now you had a personal project slash review of something called the ReST, and I'm very curious to hear about this. Andrew, talk to us about it.
Yeah, so as always, the full review is already up on AppleInsider. So if you guys are like curious, want to know more, like going into all the nitty gritty details, it was a pretty in depth review that I did. Go look at that. It's in the show notes and everything. But this is the ReST smart bed, or rather, like it's a smart mattress. It's an actual mattress, not a full bed, and it does a lot of different stuff. So I think there's two main groups of things that I would like categorize it into. So on one hand, you have like the actual adjusting bed part,
Hmm.
where there are several like air chambers inside, just like a sleep number, and you can adjust your firmness level all throughout your body. So your head, lumbar, shoulders, feet, everything can be like independently adjusted to your comfort level. At the same time, this special fabric is like pressure sensing fabric, and it's able to detect where you are in bed. Are you sleeping on your side or your back? And then it's able to automatically adjust the bed for you throughout the night. And it's super, super cool. On top of that, they have this new thing called night vision that's currently in beta that will track your sleep for you. And then it'll give you a ridiculous amount of metrics like your number of sleep cycles, your sleep duration, your restless movements, your breaths per minute, your sleep stages, your sleep positions. You can wake up, like looking at mine from September 9th, I slept on my left side for 17% of the night, my right side for 39% of the night, and apparently my back for 44% of the night. So you can see like all that breakdown in this night vision sleep tracking, and it's the most robust sleep tracking that I have seen. And I've like, tried like the Beta and the Withing system and a bunch more, even the Apple Watch, but Apple Watch is really limited into just how long you were asleep. So
Hmm.
it does a whole lot of cool stuff with the sleep tracking as well. Um, but yeah, so I've been trying this out, and it's just absurdly comfortable. It's a really cool bed. It's not, HomeKit here, but it's still a smart home product. And of course, we've talked about different like home automations that you could do with your room. So like turning on your lights when your alarm goes off. Like those are shortcuts that you can run with your HomeKit lights, and there's a lot of stuff you can do there as well. And my biggest criticism I had of this thing was that it's not yet integrated with Apple Health, and that was a bit of a bummer for me. They say it's coming, but in night vision, their sleep tracking is in beta, but when it fully launches, it should integrate with Apple Health. So I'll be waiting for that. But yeah, otherwise, what do you think, Stephen? Did you see? Did you Google my review while we're talking here?
I'm looking at it now. I've been scrolling through. So this air thing, I guess you have to have these hoses like connected to the air thing, and can you shove that under the bed or something?
Yeah, so I had it slid out for the photo there. So the way this actually is like controlled and works is there are 4 air hoses that come out of the head of the bed. So underneath these 4 air hoses protrude out, and then they're just routed underneath your bed, and they go into the pump that control everything. So all of the hoses are labeled for each of the 4 or 5 zones. Technically, 2 of them share the same air hose. There are 5 zones in the bed, so 2 of the zones share 1 hose. So there are 4 hoses that connect to the pump, and then the pump can just go under your bed. Like you don't have to see that at all. It just like we have ours underneath our nightstands because there's one for each side of the bed. So I have my independent control. My wife has her independent control. You may like different firmness levels, sleep differently, all of that. So they're completely independent from one another, and you can have your own settings in what you prefer. For settings, like there's automatic, where you can just set your firm level and how responsive you want it to be, and it'll adjust for you. You can also set different settings for your side versus your back. So you can say like, oh, on my back, I prefer like more like less support or something, but on my side, I prefer a little firmer. And then as you change position throughout the night, it'll adjust that firmness based on your sleeping position, which is really cool. Really cool.
That's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy. So I guess my question is, so it does give you data in the app about your sleep. And I guess my question is, did you compare it at all to like your Apple Watch data sleep tracking and see if there were any like correlations and trends? Like, does it seem to match up kind of? Like if you had a good night's rest, do both things tell you like, oh, you slept well or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean everything seemed pretty similar. The biggest thing is like how long you were in bed, kind of stuff. Right. And they both did that just fine. They both like gave me like the duration of my sleep was like the same, regardless of which one I looked at. But your Apple Watch doesn't really collect any other data other than that. So if you want like more data than just I'm asleep, you need to look at Pillow is a good one. There's a few other sleep trackers I can't think of off the top of my head, but you'd have to go with like one of the different sleep trackers for Apple Watch, and they can then discern like additional information like restlessness, time awake, REM versus light sleep, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, this is pulling in like your breaths per minute, all sorts of different metric. I mean, they have like silver woven fabric that's able to like detect all these pressures, and then they're using AI to detect your positions and heart rate and all this kind of stuff. It's pretty cool.
That's pretty nuts. I mean, I'm just looking at these screenshots of the app, and like the fact that it tells you the percentage of the night where you slept on your left side, your right side, and your back, like that's some pretty wild data. I would be very curious to know because, you know, sometimes you wake up and you're like, how did I get in this position? Like, what in the world did I do? Like, why am I on the floor? You know, that kind of stuff. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I would love to know that kind of stuff. So I was curious. A little pricey mattress for sure, but
yeah, I don't know, maybe. But it does undercut, Sleep Number in price. Like that's their biggest competitor is going to be Sleep Number, right? And they undercut them by quite a bit. And they have a few other benefits over like Sleep Number. Like they offer up I believe like a 10-year warranty. So if something would ever go wrong, then you're able to get like new parts for it. And the whole thing is basically modular. So if something would go wrong, like it's easy to swap out your pump or one of the chambers or something like that. So there's like wiggle room there. They also have like far more adjustments. Like Sleep Number's boasting like 20 firmness combinations or something, whereas like ReST is like, oh, it's like 2,560,000. Yeah, this is just looking at like the basic Sleep Number 360 i10. They have a limited warranty. It's not modular. It's not compatible with any adjustable base. I think you have to use like one of the Sleep Number bases. So you can use the ReST bed with any adjustable base, like the ones that'll sit you full straight upright, like to read or watch TV or something. Those will work with the ReST bed, any of those. Whereas Sleep Number, I think you have to use the actual like Sleep Number 1 to go along with it. So yeah, I've been pretty happy with it. We came from a Casper, and this is like, you know, fancier. And it's very super comfortable.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, interesting. I guess, you know, if you listener like struggle with sleep or not sure like why you're not getting good sleep, more data is always good. You know, might tell you what's going on and help. So this is super interesting, man. Air powered mattress. That's pretty cool. All right, well, we didn't get to listener questions last week because we had an awesome interview with the Thinka CEO, Michael Franken. If you missed that, we encourage you to listen to it. He talked about this new Z-Wave HomeKit Hub and all the stuff that went into that. Super interesting to kind of hear behind the scenes, like they released it on the sly without telling Apple, and Apple said, like, hey, you got certified. You know, like there was some cool stuff that came out in that interview, so definitely go back and check that out. But let's hit as many listener questions as possible. First one, I thought this was hilarious. This was Michael Smith. Wait, no, it wasn't Michael Smith. Oh, these are two different things. My bad. So the first one was Simon on Twitter. He actually tweeted me saying he got a Bluetooth toothbrush, and I forget what we were talking about. This has been several weeks ago, but he had to wait for the toothbrush to update its firmware before he could brush his teeth. And this is one of the issues now that we have so many like smart devices, not just HomeKit, but just all over the place, and like weird things that happen, like having to update the firmware. I remember I got my wife an Ember mug, and as soon as we took it out of the box, it was like, update the firmware before you can use. And it's like, what kind of day we live in where you have to update the firmware on your coffee mug before you can drink coffee? Like, that is something. So I just thought that was hilarious. Thank you, Simon, for sharing your toothbrush firmware update. That's pretty hilarious. Now, this is Michael Smith on Twitter. Said, I'm not sure if you managed to get a firm conclusion to the neutral in a light switch UK conundrum, but he has some great news. Lightwave RF switches do not require earthing. He said earthing, so maybe in the UK, like we say a neutral wire in the US. I imagine that's what he's talking about for earthing. But Lightwave RF, yeah, it's another light switch, especially if you're in the UK and maybe you need a no neutral or no earthing light switch. There you go. You might have another option there. So thank you, Michael, for that. We'll put that link in the show notes. And then we talked about fall decor and like Halloween decorations, and if you want to automate some of that stuff, put it on timers. Well, Tyler Waltz actually tweeted at me, said that he has used a Sonos smart Wi-Fi wireless light switch. It's a Wi-Fi plug, and it works with Homebridge. So if you're in that Homebridge world where you're doing those third-party plugins and integrations, this is another option for timing your lights and decorations if you don't want to deal with certain automations, or maybe you need Wi-Fi and not Bluetooth because of distance. So these, check them out. They're on Amazon. We'll put a link to that as well if you'd doing some decorations. And they're pretty cheap. They're like, you can get two for $18 for these Wi-Fi switches.
I know, and I like what, I'm not sure how that wire's in there because you have a screenshot in here, but he talks about using these for like built-in lighting. So if you have things that are like built in that you want to be able to make smart and control. So his two examples were his like the light fixture above his stove light, like the built-in stove lights there. So now that my video had cut out there, so I was in the middle of, we were talking about the smart switch here.
Yes, go ahead.
But so you can use this to control your stove light as well as like your built-in light and a bathroom vanity, which I think is super cool because I feel like those are ones that you can't do other HomeKit products. So there's this guy here, which looks like it doesn't look like it's a regular plug. Like you're not plugging in something into it. It looks like it's getting wired or something to be able to control. So Yeah, I think I would definitely be interested in looking at it a little bit more. But I don't want to use Homebridge. That's my only thing. I don't want to have to do it.
Yeah, I know. I stopped using Homebridge since we moved out, and I've been thinking about bringing it back, but I haven't yet. So I don't know. We'll see. All right, Derek Means on Twitter loves the show. He listens to the Apple Insider show, HomeKit Insider. So thank you, Derek. But he's asking, why doesn't HomeKit allow fine details like camera controls or orientation, or allowing firmware updates through HomeKit? Now, for the latter part, some devices are able to be updated through HomeKit. So some devices, if the device manufacturer allows it, you can update the firmware in the Home app through HomeKit. So I think that depends on the manufacturer and all that. But with HomeKit cameras, again, this is one of the things where we need Apple to enable certain features in HomeKit, such as camera control. We get this a lot with sensors, where HomeKit does not do things like wind speed, or I think precipitation is something else that, if you have a Netatmo weather station, you have to go to the Netatmo app to see all that data. You don't get it all in HomeKit. So I think this is more Apple needs to build these kinds of integrations into HomeKit so manufacturers can take advantage of them. That sound about right, Andrew?
I think so, but I mean, the question is a little confusing, Derek, because so one, like, HomeKit does allow both of those things. He says specifically camera orientation or allowing firmware updates through HomeKit. So if you mean through HomeKit, both of those things are already supported. You can control the camera orientation and you can do firmware updates, obviously, for HomeKit accessories. But if you're meaning like through the Home app, that's a little different in Apple's first-party Home app versus having to use like a third-party Home app like the Eve app or Home Plus. Like you said, Steven, you can now do firmware updates for third-party accessories through the Home app, but it is like on a per-device basis, and the manufacturers have to work with like Apple to implement this, and many are still doing it through their own third-party apps versus the Home app. So that is something that Apple is working on, and we should see more manufacturers adopting that. As far as things like the additional details, we have like camera orientation, historical weather data, and all of this stuff is not available in the Home app. But all of that is definitely still available in HomeKit. So the main reason why is Apple's trying to keep things simple. They want to make this the easiest smart home, and they don't want to overburden with things. So I think they keep stuff in the Home app pretty minimal, and allow you to turn, like if you're someone who wants a little bit more, you can turn to those third-party Home apps, HomeKit apps, to get that data. Like what I like about Eve is every single thing that Eve does is native HomeKit.
Right.
Every single thing they do, all the historical data, the additional, metrics and sensors and stuff that they pull in that aren't available in Apple's Home app, that is all straight HomeKit. They just expose those different characteristics through their app versus the Home app. There's a ton of additional data you can get from like your accessories that people may not even know about, and you can just see them in those third-party apps. I just think Apple tries to keep things simple. It starts to get really clunky, and then it's like, where do you draw the line of like
right,
of like what they include and don't include? So I think that's why. I think for basic control, you use the Home app, but I think most people would then turn to Eve or something else for those additional things. I agree, camera orientation does make sense as a basic one that could be in there, but yeah, at the moment it's not.
Right. All right, well, Ian Judd on Twitter, he tweeted at us. We were talking about Ethernet in building a home and running which kind. You got 6, 6E, 7, and up. He said recommended Cat 6E. Cost difference is negligible compared to Cat 6, and with that higher bandwidth, if you ever want to stream something from a server in your home, like locally over Ethernet, maybe to a computer or otherwise, that bandwidth might come in handy. So another good recommendation. Again, that'll be coming in a few months for me, and I'll let everybody know what I decide to run everywhere. And then David Ware on Twitter asked, do we know of any thread-enabled buttons? So we do have HomeKit buttons. You got the Fabaro button and I think a couple others, but he was asking, are there any thread-enabled? And as I was searching, I did not find any that have thread specifically. The Fabaro button doesn't seem to have thread yet. Eve doesn't make a button with thread. So I don't know of one yet. Andrew, do you know?
I do.
Oh, you do?
The well, kind of.
Nope.
The Wemo, what's it called? Stage controller. This button, because it shows up as a button in HomeKit. This will support Thread. I don't believe the update is out yet, but this does support Thread, or will support Thread. So you can pick up the Wemo Stage and be confident that that will be updated soon with actual Thread support. I even saw like the Thread group on Twitter sharing like a case study on why Wemo chose Thread and all this other stuff. And I was like, well, they chose it, but it's not out yet. So it's putting the cart before the horse.
Right.
We chose it for this and all this stuff, but they didn't actually release it. So come on.
Gotcha. Okay. Real quick, I wanted to mention Kyle Taylor. He actually sent me a Notion database that he has built with all his HomeKit accessories. And I asked him, he gave me permission to share the link. There's nothing personal information on it, but it's a pretty impressive way of organizing his HomeKit devices. He's got things tagged by location and brand, linked to the product, how much it cost, if it's something on his wish list, or is he going to get rid of it? And then he also has like, what is it? Is it a hub, a speaker? Is it lighting? Is it security? And he got like 159 entries in here. So impressive setup. Again, I love a good spreadsheet, and having this in Notion so you can actually share it and all that and link stuff out. Pretty cool. So we'll put a link to that. Oh man, he's even got floor plans. I missed that the first time. I looked at it on my phone. Oh my goodness. This brother's serious. Well, anyway, Kyle, kudos to you. This is an exhaustive information on your smart home. And yeah, I just thought that was super cool. So you'll see that Notion link in the show notes as well. Well, we might have time for like one more question. This is from Chris, and he's asking about consolidating Apple IDs. And let me see. I'll read this real quick. I'm not on. So on the face of it, he's asking, he's got a newer Apple ID he uses for work, but he wants to move some of his HomeKit stuff and data to another Apple ID. With a third-party app help him, anything like that? I do not think so. I'm pretty sure, like security and privacy-wise, like there's no transfer stuff from one Apple ID to another. I actually have this issue with some of my kids' stuff. They have like different accounts for media and purchases than their actual iCloud account, just the old way I'd set it up. I think my wife is also like that. And anytime I've tried to consolidate that, the playlists and stuff built in Apple Music or whatever, like don't carry over. And I do not know of a way to move that data over, and let alone like HomeKit data or merging Apple IDs or anything like that. So, Andrew, do you have any thoughts on this?
It is a bad situation to be in, really.
Yeah.
Because, for me, so there's the two parts here with the HomeKit and then the purchases. So HomeKit, no, you're going to have to get it reset. It's like paired to your Apple ID, and you're going to have to like remove, reset, and re-add your devices to your other Apple ID. But you should do all this sooner rather than later, because the longer you wait, the more of a pain it becomes, especially with purchases. Anything you purchase is not going to be like going to that new link or that new account. So for me, we were growing up and like getting really into like the Apple stuff. I had a lot of purchases through iTunes. Like I had bought, a ton of music in, high school and everything. And we did not have our own like Apple IDs, right? Because it all went through like my parents, and going into middle school and stuff like that, it went through my parents. And I had bought movies and TV shows, and especially a ton of like I'd get like iTunes gift cards for Christmas and stuff, and I would go buy like full seasons of TV, and like watching like the video iPod and all this stuff. Eventually, later years in high school, going to college or whatever, like it made more sense to go with, because back then you didn't have like the .Mac stuff was separate. .Mac, Mobile Me,
Oh, yeah.
before iCloud, all of that. So it was really just like for purchases. So when I had like eventually set up like my own like Apple ID and with Mobile Me or whatever, I was like, oh man, all of my purchases, like a stupid number of purchases, were on my parents' account.
Yeah.
And there was no way I lost, everything.
Yeah.
Like there's no way to move it over, and it super sucks. So anytime now that I talk to someone who like a kid or something, like get them their own Apple ID early on.
Yeah.
And allow them to purchase through their account and use like the family sharing stuff to like allocate and like pay for those purchases. So if you're still paying for them, fine, but they can like use their account and route like using the family sharing or the allowances or whatever they are for that, just so it's like it's to their account.
Yes.
Because you don't want to wait until like at some point you have to move them to their own, start purchasing on their own, and they're going to lose everything that they had.
Right.
And it sucks.
Right, because it's not even just like, purchases now, like my kids, my wife, like we have all the subscription services. Apple Music is there. They're not purchasing as much stuff. But like I said, with Apple Music, the issue with my wife's account, I just remembered her iTunes purchases and like store account is an old Hotmail email address that we no longer have access to. We've tried, we don't have the password. We tried to reset it, can't do that. Tried to do the whole contact Microsoft with like your driver's license and, drop of blood, like whatever they need to try and verify your identity. We tried all that and they will not give us access to the account. So we can't access that email or change it. But if I try to make that purchase account the same as her iCloud account, all of her playlists disappear. And those are playlists that she has been making, again, like you said, like since high school. And it's just extremely inconvenient. And we also do iTunes Match and all those things. And so I don't know how that will work. So I've just not touched it. And it's really inconvenient and annoying, but it's safe because you don't lose anything. So, yeah, it's a tough situation for sure. Kind of sucks. Let's be real.
Yep.
Man,
Wow, way to end it on a downer, Steven.
Oh, sorry. Listen, this Friday, as you listen, though, there's going to be new Apple products. And that's the opposite of a downer. That's really exciting.
Well, it's panic up until that moment, Steven. And then once I make a decision, I'm going to make the wrong one.
No,
And then I'm going to worry about it. And you're like, oh, why did I do that? Why did I listen
You're trying to bring us down.
Why didn't I listen
know
to
what you're
Steven?
doing,
It's
Andrew.
gonna be
You're trying to bring it back down again. I'm saying iPhone 13s, iPad minis, Apple Watch Series 7, we don't know when it's coming out, but that'll be coming out sometime. And I'm excited to see.
Apple Watch sometime.
Sometime. When that next Apple event is going to be. We're sure there's most likely going to be another Apple event this fall for like Macs and stuff. And since they already announced all the iPads with the iPhone event and the Apple Watch, it looks like it might be a pretty significant event for Macs and stuff. So anyway, I'm excited about that. Stay tuned to Apple Insider, of course, and the HomeKit Insider podcast and YouTube channel. Listeners, if you don't watch us, you can see myself singing the Bee Gees at the beginning of this episode and Andrew sleeping on his mattress. No, you won't see that. But you should subscribe to our YouTube channel. That link is in show notes. You can tweet at Andrew and myself. Our Twitter handles are there as well. We'd appreciate a 5-star rating and review in Apple Podcasts. That helps out the show as well. And, as always, thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time.
See ya.
See ya.